Hello, Jedi Knights and Sith Lords. Eric and I are joining forces again to bring you a brand new show called Order 66.
Together, we'll be reviewing all the upcoming Star Wars content, and we hope that you'll be joining us.
Hello, Jedi Knights and Sith Lords, and welcome to this week's Order 66 episode, in which we will cover both episodes 5 and 6 of the Skeleton Crew. Eric, hello, how are you, man?
Good. Yourself? How were your holidays?
Pretty good, pretty good. Happy New Year to you and both our viewers as well. So
Same. Yeah.
Pretty cool holidays, and I was more quiet this year than I kind of used to. So
Yeah.
I'm in pretty good shape coming out of the holidays. So
That's good.
yeah, I was spoiled as usual. As you might have noticed, I'm using my brand new headphones.
Yeah.
So yeah, my old ones were kind of giving up on me nice and slow. So
I didn't say anything, but you
before I
can
was
see one was ripping on the side there.
Oh yeah. We could see the foam
Yeah.
coming out of the leather. So
Vintage.
I was long overdue new one. So
That's good.
And oddly, Nico and I almost bought the same ones. So
It looks like HypeX or some kind of thing like that.
HyperX, yeah. HyperX, like my microphone here. So
Nice. All right.
Nice looking.
So I think it was pretty good. We had two pretty good episodes. I think it's probably a good idea to discuss them separately, but probably give them a rating this time together, because I think, just like you mentioned earlier, offline, is that this felt like this was a package. These two episodes,
it feels like one big episode that was cut in two during the editing, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like the first two as well, that were kind of like that. So and if we go back and start with episode 5, basically the premise of it was them going to find what ends up being, what we find out is Captain Tak Renaud's lair, to get the coordinates for Aten, which I think we had speculated, if they go to a different planet, then the coordinates should be there if there is, the 9 other planets or whatnot. So we seem to be right on that one. One thing is I wanted to mention, though, is that we see the parents at the beginning with the dad that was trying to hide that gadget or whatever, trying to hack the system.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they're just forcing them into the episode, just like, hey, we didn't forget. Yes, they're looking for their kids. They're very concerned. But other than that, no one cares. No one cares.
They're so bad at doing what they're trying to do. They're so clumsy.
They're going to work and being totally normal, but to me, it's just I don't know. It's like no one's really worried about the parents, right? And almost even if we keep the parallel with Goonies, no one cared what was going on with the parents. We know they're trying to look for them, but
yeah.
Because you see them and I'm like, okay, is this setting up for more of a plot with the parents? Then we never saw them again, and we didn't see them, I think, in episode 6 as well.
No,
so I'm like, it's just hey, don't forget they're here, and yes, they are worried about their children. Let's move on. I'm like, okay, thanks for that. And they tried to have a little bit of a comedy thing with the left hand, your other hand, both hands kind of thing. I'm like, okay, I get it, but let's move on. And on that, let's move on. So we find out in all of this that the ship's name, we find out, we hear the name for the first time, was the Onyx
in the series,
Cinder.
at least.
Yeah, the first time. So we've known this. Well, I've known because of the Lego set that I purchased. It was called the Onyx Cinder, so it wasn't much of a surprise to me.
Spoiler.
The biggest surprise is that they hadn't named it yet, I guess, in my mind. So in the show, but.
For those of you who are curious about how the Onyx Cinder look in the Lego set, you can check out Eric's pretty cool time lapse he did on his YouTube channel. I think it lasts about 7 minutes 30.
About 6.5. About 7 minutes or so. Yeah. So, but it lasted a lot longer than that building it. But
and there's a pretty fun moment where the cat is staring at you for about 2 minutes, but it must have been 10 minutes when you speed it. So
I think the dog kind of makes his appearance in there sometimes, but I made it over a few days, so it was because the thing is with Lego, you want to enjoy it as well, and I'm like, and there's no way I was going to build that all in one shot.
No,
So I think it's cut up into about I think it was about
two or
six.
three.
That was about
Oh, more than that.
yeah, yeah. So it was like I think it was like about five or some 5 different days. But anyway, we digress again. In this episode again, they end up ending up on a planet. Well, actually, on their journey on the ship,
Uh-huh.
what we notice is like every or like some of the other kids we've seen so far, like Fern. We had Wim have his moment where he had his breakdown,
Yeah.
where his I guess showed his vulnerability, and kind of like he was so caught up in finding adventure and adventure, and now he's like self doubting. Maybe I'm not made for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had
He,
noticed something as well.
well, since the beginning, he was craving for adventure and wanting to become a Jedi and everything, and he realizes that adventure comes with its share of challenges, I guess, and he has a pretty big discussion with Jod, who, while he's giving advices to him, kind of reveals what happens to him in the past as well, because he says, "Forget about your parents. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Make up your own adventure. No attachments." So I guess the
Well,
no attachment thing recalls to the Jedi, but at the same time,
that's something I'm dying
uh,
to see because like there's that moment right when he uses the Force, I think, right, in that conversation as
yeah,
well towards the end. Yeah.
he brings back his little tablet,
Yeah.
on Wim's knees. So
And he asks us something about like the Jedi thing, I think, which he kind of evades the whole question and just moves on.
as always, yeah,
I'm very curious. That's one of the things I'm probably most intrigued about when it comes to the show in general is Jod's kind of background and
yeah,
the use of the
Jaws,
Force.
yeah, his backstory and
Yeah.
everything, yeah,
So in all that, they do end up finding the captain's log. Again, so we find out his name was Tak Renard, and it's said to have what was I guess the legend, was that he had been betrayed by his crew and crashed his ship into at
yeah.
Aten. So,
And SM-33 also revealed that he had a lair on Skull Ridge Mountain, which is a peak on a planet to which he traveled called Lanupa.
yeah, Planet
So
Lanupa. Yeah, so he goes, it'll always be something, or he knows it as Skull Ridge Mountain. So he goes, not to be fooled, like that's what it is. And then we find out that Jod's got yet another name.
yeah,
Dash Zenton, I think was a name in this one,
yeah, that's
revealed
Jensen.
by a bounty hunter called Pocket, played by Kelly MacDonald. So Kelly MacDonald, she's played in a few things. I remember her probably from one of her first roles, if I'm not mistaken, was in Train Spotting, which was
Uh-huh.
coincidentally played opposite of Ewan McGregor. So
Cool.
yeah, she was like his kind of weird. It's hard to think about, like an underage girlfriend that he finds out is only 16, kind of thing. So she
Ugh.
was like a rebellious teenager. And I remember as well in later in No Country for Old Men, which was again Josh Brolin talking about Goonies and all that stuff. She was
Uh-huh.
his girlfriend or his wife in that. So that's what I remember. You remembered her from something
Yeah,
else though.
yeah, from Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah,
She had a pretty big role, which lasted throughout the whole series.
I gotta go back and
Uh,
finish that. I think I've only watched the first series though.
oh yeah, you should watch it. I mean, I own the box set at my place because I really liked it, and
Nice.
uh, I mean, it was pretty good acting overall by the cast. Some actors were discovered in that series, so
Yeah, I gotta go back.
uh,
Gotta go
yeah,
back.
for sure.
So happy to see her come along. So in all that, going down to I guess the layer, they had split up. You're not going to go through everything. I mean, there was this kind of like giant creature that helped them out, but they ended up going through some
Yeah,
booby.
Stallops.
Yeah,
I was happy to see his face finally because we saw the huge tentacle in the trailer, and I was wondering what kind of creature it was, I was thinking of a Bogolet kind of creature, the one we saw in Rogue One that can read the mind
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
of the rebel pilot. I was thinking of something like that, but like
It's
in
much
a
larger.
larger size,
Yeah.
yeah. But turns out it was a friendly, seal-faced with mixed with an octopus, I guess, or
Just
something.
enjoying a
And
nice steam bath or whatnot.
yeah,
So I mean, obviously
and
they're
another
jerk.
time we hear somebody says, "I you should not trust John."
Yeah,
He
again,
says that
again.
at some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
once more. Aside from Puckett, who said it like 3 minutes before that.
yeah.
So
So we have. I mean, the whole journey down there. Anyway, it seemed like a lot of Indiana Jones slash Goonies booby traps and whatnot. In the captain's log, they end up getting the coordinates, which ends up we'll find out late. Well, we find out later were saved in KB's memory.
mhm.
Um, so and we find out more about the story about Atten, and we find out that it's known. Well, it's supposedly the last old Republic mint. So basically, where they can print money, and that's why it's such a
Yeah,
treasure because they can just go over there and just print as much as they want, which is why I guess now maybe makes or puts John over the edge now in terms of like
that's it. Yeah,
his
the the,
loyalty,
the,
right?
the lust for money and power, I guess. So yeah, it felt pretty. The moment where he flips. So
Yeah, so that's when we find out that. Sorry, my little light went out over here. So we find out that that's when he kind of turns on them, and right at that moment he challenges Fern,
Fern.
and we have Wim trying to stand up and have his big Jedi moment, and he fumbles by lighting the lightsaber
As
upside
soon
down.
as he came up with the lightsaber, I immediately saw the cover text ring, which is used to attach the lightsaber on a belt clip.
You saw it on top.
And yeah, I saw it on top, and I'm like, he's holding it, the wrong way. But I thought it was just a mistake from the
Oh, you're gonna call
production.
that out?
Yeah, and boom, it was all intended,
Yeah,
and it was so fun to see the lightsaber pop up. And I mean, you should be glad to still have all these limbs because when that lightsaber was turned on, I mean, it sprung in the air and everything. So
yeah.
yeah,
So it was, and the kids end up eventually use a booby trap that they'd seen and escape, and Jod holding the lightsaber, which I was surprised we don't see. And now we'll move on to episode 6, but we didn't get to see that come back in episode 6, the lightsaber, which
true.
was
Well,
kind of
I,
surprising.
I think Brutus has it next to his chair.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
obviously, because so let's move right on to that. So, uh, we find out, obviously, Jod gets captured, and to me, like when he's that the little kind of like talking, he's well, we're just coming to get you, kind of thing, like that whole story when
yeah,
he sees Urkel and his friends. So it's to me that had massive Han Solo vibes, scoundrel, the way he was trying to like weasel his way out of it.
yeah,
So I thought that was pretty
small,
interesting.
smooth talking.
Yeah, yeah, and at the same time, we find out that KB, I think she got kind of like her Augs went bad during the escape. I guess got damaged or whatnot, which we end up seeing affects her further in the episode. So
Yeah, and also when we saw John coming out with all the gold chains and the jewelry and stuff like that, it reminded me of the Fratelli family in the Goonies, where they all
oh
put
yeah,
all sorts of jewels and chains on them, trying to escape with them as
yeah,
much
yeah,
treasure as they can. So it was a nice wing, but also, I mean, Benny and the Mummy, that little weasel was always betrayed the main characters, and so many characters in Disney movies. And I think it was in Aladdin that someone is too greedy and tries to
yeah. So
to get as much stuff on
I
him.
think it would have been almost too much, but I was almost expecting something where if they touch the treasure, something happens type thing.
Yeah,
Like
could
in
have been.
but I think that would have been a little bit hard to explain or how that works. But it was pretty funny. It was a fun moment. Like for me, like I'm telling you, I went back the second time I watched that episode. It just had such a. You can close your eyes and it just sounds like it's Han Solo that's like trying to like
Oh
weasel his
yeah.
way out of it. So we also had again, I mentioned that KB. We find out that she's got the coordinates as the kids, kind of spill out of the slide and trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to get out of here? They did notice that the pirates ended up getting chased away by the X-wings, and the kids noticed that the X-wings are not the bad guys, is kind of like
Yeah,
made out with,
like John said. Yeah.
So they needed to get the
Speaking of
ship.
the slide you just mentioned, I mean, it was also very reminiscent of the Goonies when they slide at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And they end up finding what I don't know the name of the pirate, but
One-Eyed Willie.
his big ship is there.
Yeah.
One-Eyed Willie. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it reminded me of that, and also of Luke when he slides down in The Empire Strikes Back after refusing to join Vader.
So I think that was my question when we spoke. Like the whole thing, even when they escaped at the end of the episode 5, where like they purposely trigger a trap to and basically say, "I'm gonna see what happens. I'll take my chances with this trap rather than get imprisoned by Jod." And like I feel like I've seen that in a movie somewhere, and I can't put my finger on it. So if anyone
remember something,
put something in
like
the
that.
comments or in the replies. I'm very curious, but I'm sure one day I'll watch a movie and go, that's it. But I feel like I've seen that before. Someone saying, "I'll take my chances with this trap rather than getting caught here." So,
and it's kind of what Luke says indirectly to Vader when he decides to fall, in the emptiness of Cloud City. So
yeah.
You rather plunge to almost certain death than join Vader. So,
but so now we're completely moving off subject. But I always used to wonder: is it because he felt tempted to join his father in that moment because he found out that it was his father? And he's like, I can't take this chance. I'll just like bail out of here. Because what did he feel? The first draw to the dark side, right? So
because he must have been mad at maybe Obi-Wan for lying to him.
Yeah.
So he might have maybe thought, maybe Vader's right and Obi-Wan's wrong. But he still says, I'll never join you.
Yeah.
So, and he jumps down. So
okay, so now we're completely. So let's go.
Yeah.
Round back to so the kids. There was a bit of like a skirmish. I think we have Fern. It's not Fern. KB finally stands up to Fern when Fern is like, "Come on, let's go and do this." Kids split up in the kind of like the odd couples thing where the two besties, two groups of besties didn't stay together. They split up. Where you had Wim was saying to follow these trash crabs, and the other ones thought we should just go directly up. So it ended up being a challenge for both of them. But we saw like the trash crabs. I don't know if anyone noticed any other Easter eggs, but we saw what looks or appears to be a protocol droid leg. My son saw a stormtrooper helmet, but I didn't see it. My TV for some reason during the day is too dark. I didn't see it, but he spotted it. So I have a hard time doubting him. So I'm sure if you pause it, you can find more. If you guys saw more, please let us know in the comments. But then meanwhile, before they go off on their journeys, we find out, that Jod's been sentenced to death. And I think this is Jude Law's moment.
Death by airlock. I mean, I guess in all Pirates movies, the plank.
Yeah.
But in space is the airlock. So.
But they did this whole like your last kind of like comment or whatever they call, but like and that's where I think Jude Law really
equal time. I took a note. It was he has the right of last appeal, and it's called equal time. So he turns like a glass. How do you call that? An
hourglass or
hourglass. I take it. Yeah. So he turns one down. It's plasma instead of sand, and he pleads for his life, basically. And I think you best said it when we were preparing for the show that it was finally a moment where he was speaking from his heart, right?
Yeah, it's So I mean, it's hard to trust him, but it really
Hmm.
felt like, and you said like pleading for his life, is being sneaky, but it really felt like it came from the heart. Like he goes, are you I'm hungry, or are you sick of being hungry, like eating these
Hmm.
scraps and all this stuff, and like and you can see it's probably the stress of his life's work of just always running after little things, and then you have to find another and then find another to keep surviving. Like if to him
Hmm.
going to find this mint is like that's done. He's like he's set for life, right?
Hmm.
So that was a good speech. I think it was his kind of moment in
True.
that show. He's not around the kids, doesn't have to act a certain way, and but I really like that speech that he gave there. So
Really liked it when he kind of recites the legend of Takranad, with a little piratey song. So
yeah, I forget what they
uh,
call those, like the kind of song, but like there's a but yeah, when he said that thing, and um, it reminds you obviously like the Pirates of the Caribbean there,
yeah,
and whatnot.
yo
So
ho, yo
exactly.
ho.
Um, so meanwhile, we have both kids, showing the problem solving skills on both ends. We have Fern that is basically, well, she's
Forced to realize that.
yeah. So because of Neil's, I guess small hands, he called her like your spider limbs or spider hands, or whatever he
Yeah,
calls it. Because she kind of realizes that he can't really do everything, and at the same time we have KB talking to Wim about how Fern doesn't realize these things, and she's afraid to well, I guess to admit to her, to tell her I can't do these things, and that's when the
hmm,
accident is mentioned, right? Like
yeah.
since the accident, so obviously something happened to her, and you could see that she's a lot more,
She's slowly shutting down,
yeah. But you find out that she's a
and
lot more droid, I guess,
yeah.
or than I guess many of us had kind of. Well, not many of us. I mean, I had assumed that she wasn't that much of a joy, but if you look at the
Hmm.
back of her neck, like with the mechanics and everything that she has
Oh
there,
yeah.
so obviously something pretty bad must have happened. And she says, since the accident, she just doesn't want to show Fern that there's no limits. She has limits where Fern seems to think that she has none, and it's at that whole kind of parallel realization that maybe through Neil she might have realized and come to her senses that that little confrontation they had earlier, maybe that's something that's going on, right? So
Yeah, and I would even say that she becomes a better leader
as a
through that,
result,
because we see that she uses like a rope to tie it around Neil's waist,
yeah.
and just to help pulling him, to climb this huge ladder they're climbing to get to the ship. So
So if we take a moment to kind of address something that even I think last year when we went to Disney, you know we we take for granted. I'm obviously myself and probably others, that we could
mhm.
just go and do this, just go and do that, and it's come to the realization that like that you couldn't follow and you couldn't do certain things, right? It's something that was
So true.
I came to realization, and you've mentioned sometimes when we're talking about either going to Comic Con or whatever, the logistics that go along with you
Me being
personally.
able to attend, yeah,
Exactly. So it's like it's not just like straightforward, like we'll just show up, right? And we've
true.
we've talked about it. If anyone goes back and looks at our vacation or our trip video, where some of the logistics and some of the issues that you had with your car breaking down and whatnot. But aside from that, in general, when you go somewhere, and even I guess your whole life, there's that thing where you're kind of like the KB of this situation, where people just think,
So
well,
true.
it's why can't you just do that, right? Like so,
Yeah, well, maybe my disability is a little bit more visible and obvious than KB's because she's walking around and everything. But for sure, I mean, I've been confronted to obstacles related to my disability from day one. So just the simple fact that when I go to a public place, I need to find, for example, I was at the New York Comic Con. I needed to find the first aid station because I need to go to the bathroom, and to do that, I need to lie down. So I can just use a normal bathroom, or even the bathroom that is larger for disabled persons. I can do that because I cannot transfer myself on the toilet seat. So
Yeah.
I need assistance for basically everything. I cannot scratch my eyebrow if it itches me. I cannot drink by myself. So basically, uh, people around me need to provide some sort of assistance. And
Well,
as you
there's
said, being at Disney, there's like rides like
the
Rise of the
rise. Yeah,
Resistance.
I thought of that
That
exactly.
yeah, because I can even do it in the
Well, we
smugglers one
pushed it
and the
as far
Falcon.
as we could, right? We're like trying to like
That's true.
one more step. We
So
can go further. We can go further. We can go further. And then it just got to the point where that
right up until
last.
I needed to transfer in the little buggy, and that part is not possible because, well, for security reasons, uh, and mostly because of the drop at the end of the ride. That's why I can go all the way. But yeah, yes, it broke my heart, but at the same time, there was so many other stuff that I could enjoy that I shifted my focus on what I could do instead of what I couldn't do. And that's how my parents raised me.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
there was the Millennium Falcon, which I mean, we benefited as well because like when it's like they process you and all this stuff, right?
hmm
It's like a machine. Go in, come on, come on. And anyone who's been to Comic Con, when you go for your pictures, you're not going to meet the person. Let's just face it. You're going there. You're stand. In your case, Dominic, it's probably different,
yeah,
but most of us, it's like they process you. Go, okay, look over here. Okay, quick. You can't even really talk to the person. If you try, they're pushing you. They process you. And at Disney, there's they're very accommodating. I find in
hmm
terms of like they're much more polite and they help you, but they do process you. And when we got to go to the Millennium Falcon with you, it was like, okay, everything's on hold, and we got to kind of go in, take
yeah.
pictures, look around. We had a plenty of time, so it's like, yeah, you
I
didn't
was
go
able to get a picture in the cockpit, even though I couldn't do the actual ride.
exactly.
So
So it's like you got to get some benefits, I guess it's of they find a way to give you a good experience out of it, despite the fact
yeah,
that you didn't go on the ride. But like again, it's stuff that like once we get there, like crap, like we or even when we're scheduling some of the rides, like you can only do certain rides. Or like, well, we'll do this, we'll do this. And I'm like, oh man, Dom can't do that, and Dom can't, or
hmm
Dom can't get. I think you could
no
do it,
haunted
but they won't let
mansion,
you on,
no,
right?
yeah, no haunted mansion, no Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
There was you know, it's mostly the little rides that I can do. I can do Small World. I could do Ratatouille. I could do the
Little
Three
Mermaid,
Amigos, Real
the
Mermaid.
Jungle Cruise.
Uh,
You went on the Jungle Cruise, right?
yes, of
Yeah.
course, that was
So
cool.
yeah, and
I
then
remember doing it when I was younger, so it brought back some cool memories.
so that's like obviously of all the people or anyone who would talk about this show and that moment, you can very easily skip over, but like I can only imagine that when you watch this episode, it's
Oh
like
yeah, I felt compelled for
yeah,
sure. I mean, for once, we're seeing somebody with some physical challenges, uh, on the front row seat. And it's funny because last summer in Toronto, Bryce Dallas Howard was there, and I was intending on going to meet her and talk to her about more representation of disabled persons in Star Wars, mostly because the only person in the wheelchair that we saw in the past was Klieg Lars, which is Uncle Owen's father, and we saw him for what, 2 scenes, 3 scenes.
yeah,
So very very little representation, and it ended up being the episode that Bryce Dallas Howard directed.
yeah,
I never got to meet her in Toronto because of financial reasons, but uh, I was like, wow, what a pretty cool coincidence
yeah.
that I was imagining myself talking to her in August and having her say yes, 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 and she couldn't spill it out for me because
Yeah, sure. It would have been interesting to know
she
it.
was sworn to secrecy. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Maybe she would have
What
hinted
would
at
have been?
something, right, or something. But
Yeah, well,
you
wait
know
until
what?
Christmas.
I think by meeting anyone, if you were to meet anyone that was involved with this show, it would make for quite a compelling conversation about the
Hmm.
parallel that you felt perhaps with KB in this show. So I think that's something to keep in your pocket when you do meet these people, and if you want to, I don't know if you're going to thank them or whatnot for something you had already thought of in the past. So it's
Hmm.
pretty cool that they have that representation. But speaking of that, of Bryce Dallas Howard, I think I just saw a small clip where, going back to that crab mother or whatever, that was stop motion, right? From
Yeah, from
yeah,
our good friend Phil Tippett.
yeah. So that, and they were saying, what was the timing? They said it takes, like, I don't know if it was a X amount of days for each scene or whatever, or how many hours it was for each scene.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't remember it, but yeah,
it
it
was
must have been
long. It
pretty
was
long.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
but maybe that's why it took so long for it to get released. But no, but
Hmm.
yeah. Um, so let's move on with the with the end of the show, because I mean that was for me. I admittedly watched that part, and obviously I would I was thinking about that, but I didn't when you brought it up afterwards, and I was like, holy crap, man! I can't imagine how much that would have hit you at that point. So, for you, how much focus do you have on the rest of the episode? Where I'm just like moving
Oh,
on, right? So
no, I was not there at all. I was
yeah,
still thinking about KB and her struggles and when to finally be a hero because he wanted to be a hero since episode one, and now he truly becomes a hero.
yeah,
And KB, notices it and says, "Thank you, Jedi."
yeah. That's
And
that
he's
little
like,
hint
"Wow,
was
I did it!" We're like, "Wow,
yeah.
that's awesome." I mean, yeah.
So we had the kids meeting up, going back to we're talking about the trash crab.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately ended up bring the kids. It was a bad decision by Wim. Not a bad
Mm-hmm.
decision, but it was probably not the right decision to follow them, because then they ended up being a lunch for, or what would have been a lunch for this queen crab. Uh,
I like this comment of saying, "Why do I always trust the wrong person?"
yeah. So then the other kids grab the ship and come and save the day. And then we saw something that was kind of odd and something that was unexpected. Well, not unexpected, because we finally got to see what the emergency hall demolition
Mm-hmm.
sequencer button does, and we had predicted that earlier, that it's not the last we've heard of that button. But it looked like it was kind of like a shedding of like armor or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah. To me, it reminded me of a butterfly coming out of a cocoon,
yeah,
and and the ship is much prettier
yeah.
without the hull.
I wasn't
It
sure
kind
if
of
you were
reminded me of
gonna.
the Mantis of Calcus and his crew. I mean, not the exact same type
Yes,
of ship,
it
but
had a Republic kind of
pretty
look
similar.
to it. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, so I wasn't sure if it was a ship that you would have recognized, but I mean, I wouldn't have recognized to that detail. But like, I
Not at
guess it
all.
was something brand new. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but that was
But I
interesting.
thought it was gonna be Wim's moment to push the button, and everybody would he would be reluctant, and everybody would say, "No, do it," and it turned out that it was Fern who pushed the button.
So that's what I caught in our conversation before, and where Wim was all gutsy, right, about how he'll take the chance, he'll do it. His
Uh huh.
experience with the crab caused that hesitation, and Fern, for once, was the person not taking the safe route. She's the one
Yeah.
that said, "Screw it, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna take that kind of like that risk," which would probably
Mm-hmm.
maybe Fern used to do, but like she had that confidence now, like, I'm doing this, I'm taking the leadership, where there was that
Mm-hmm.
doubt before, right? So like it was a kind of a switch. Wim was like, "Screw this, I'm not taking that chance anymore." Wim would have been the first one to push that button before. He would have been the first one to
Yeah.
push it. In episode one,
And
Wim's pushing
Fern
that button.
would have stopped him. Yeah.
Exactly. And now there was a shift. And now it's like, I find like they've all kind of found their roles. I find Neil kind of knows what he's like. We found that probably in episode, what was it, 5? Or no, in episode 4, was it?
Yeah. When he
His
saved the day with 733.
then we have your so now I find Fern's got you got Wim, this kind of like knows his limits now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of, and KB, who's kind of like kind of got it off her chest that she knows now that, like, she could be more honest. So I find like they've have their identity now. Their stories
Yeah.
developed for each character as far as it can be to this point. And the teamwork that they had all together, where we had Wim take control of the guns. We had it was KB when messed around with the, not the controls, but whatever. We had
Yeah.
like Neil taking the piloting with Fern. So like they each had their station. Like they really working as a team and got out of this situation.
Yeah. It's funny because my last note I took from watching the show was the kids finally have become one unit. And
Yeah.
in parentheses, I wrote the skeleton crew.
Okay.
So just to put some emphasis on it, so they have become one, so they have learned about themselves and about their peers, and now they know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And if you look back when KB is initiating the takeoff sequence, Fern is looking at her in awe. She's like, wow, she can do it. So she has a face watch in so admirative of KB, and she sees hers with a different eye, I guess. So
Yeah.
they've all grown up, they've all evolved, and now they're not two groups of best friends; they are one group of best friends.
Yeah.
So
So it's a great setup for the last two episodes.
oh yeah.
So for me, if I were to group the last two episodes, I'll let you start. What do you think about, if you were to
Yeah,
group
well,
them together?
usually we give notes separately for
Yeah.
the episode, but as we said right from the get go, I think it's one big episode. I would give it a 8.5 out of 10 for those two episodes. Maybe I'm a little bit biased by the KB backstory, but
No, you know what?
uh,
I give it the same thing. I give it an
really okay.
8.5. So and I think there was a lot of highlight moments in the series. It's hard to give it a 9. I mean, I think it wasn't like spectacular. I thought it was really good. But I mean, this is obviously keeping the score in line with the previous episodes and what we've given them as well. So I went down. I think it's almost at like 6.5 on an episode. So to me, this is like, it's better than an 8. Without trying to go with the 8.2s and whatnot, but like 8.5.
Yeah.
So combined score of obviously 8.5 average. But I have one question.
Sure.
Where is our pirate friend, and will we see him in the last two episodes?
Well, I'm less confident than I was
Yeah, me too. Me too.
right from the beginning of the show.
I don't see how he fits now, other than a little weird cameo thing. Not weird.
Yeah,
but,
maybe we see him back at the pirate asteroid. After, and he could be like, "I told you it wouldn't work" or something like that. Just a quick little comment, but I don't think it's going to play
But they're both
any
headed.
kind of major role.
So Jod and the pirates and the kids are all headed to Ad-Adin at this point. They both have the coordinates. That's where they're going. So
Yeah.
I don't see where he fits without, unfortunately, kind of like forcing him in there. So the only way I see it happening is that something happens. I can't imagine the kids going off and doing something. I think they're going to come back home, and if everyone saves the day, Wim's going to want to be at home. The kid's going to be happy, like to find their parents and all that stuff. So the only thing is if like Jod kind of like, I think in almost any other thing we've ever seen before, where like I think it was John Silver in Treasure Planet, and we had even spoken about this earlier, where this kind of bad guy, not so bad guy, he's going to turn on them. He didn't say he was going to kill the kids, right? He said he was just going to like imprison them or whatever. He's going to end up, I think, ultimately saving them or helping them. And then I think at the very end, if he goes off, we might see Hondo like in a kind of like, I don't know if it's a post credit or like, oh, where's Jod now? Like, what's he doing?
Could be.
And we'll see them encounter each other, and that'll be it. There, you wanted Hondo, we gave you Hondo, and that's it. That's the only way I see it working without feeling too forced of him like being like, what are you doing here, right, at this point? Because there's no character development.
It could be a tease for potential season 2.
Yeah, And you know what? I'm genuinely sick of that stuff where it's like you don't know if you're making another season, so you're always gonna leave that door open and not give full closure. Mando season 3, they closed it. So if they don't make it, they don't make it. But at least the story's closed. Don't leave this kind of acolytes thing where, or maybe other series where it's just like, but wait, no, just finish it and don't worry about coming back to the story. I want there to be closure, not this kind of like, hand sticking out of the ground kind of like, ending of a horror movie where like, oh no, the guy's not really dead. Like, I don't want that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, I find that Disney has a habit of doing that in all their series where they kind of leave the door open.
Could be like a post-credit scene that they shot, and depending on the success of the show or not, they'll put it or won't put it. So, and that could be the Ando Anaka scene. I mean, it could be just him, at the bar, leaning towards John and say, "So, you find the mint." And poof, it ends up like that.
I think you have to have him, but I don't want it to be forced. It's like it's kind of torn, right? Like, would you don't want it to be too forced, but then you want to have him, and it's just so you want him to have a good moment. I think that a lot of people watching the series won't even know who this is. Not a lot, but I think
depending if you've seen Clone Wars or Rebels. So
So, but overall, still happy. I think if I were to rate the show to this point, I mean it's a solid 8. But I think that these last 2 episodes will be very exciting, and we're only 2 days away from seeing what happens. So what are you expecting, real quick before we end? What are you expecting to see like in the last like? I kind of touched it. Like I think it's just overall you're gonna have the kid's gonna be put in a tough situation with the pirates, and Jod's eventually gonna make the right decision and save them.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Well, next episode, the kids are returning home, and I expect that it's gonna end up with the pirates arriving, and everything is gonna look all gloomy. And in the final episode is going to be the typical big battle for the end. And I think we're going to see Neo using that huge gun we saw in episode 4, that it should be hidden since the palace is not destroyed or ravaged by war. So he'll have his hero moment, and he's going to shoot at maybe the biggest of the pirate ships, something like that. So
I think you probably got that. I think you were probably nailing that. I'm hoping for answers about Jod, his backstory, and
I want to see who's controlling everything in the that tower. For sure. So is it Takranad or is it somebody else? If I heard correctly, Takranad should be dead, I guess.
Should be, but But the thing, he was going there, it was already a mint, right? So. Anyway, we'll find out. So we'll be covering this. We should be a little bit more on time. No holidays between now and then.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll try to get this off. Unless the next episode is like totally mind-boggling, maybe we could just get together real quick, add another episode, and then after that cover the finale. But other than that, if not, we'll probably see you guys in 2 weeks for covering the last 2.
Yeah. So I guess that's a wrap for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any theories for the series finale, please mention it in the comments section. And I guess we'll see you, as Eric said, in 1 week or 2, depending of how intriguing the episode 7 is. And thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.